when I was in high school, I actually had a really intense near-death experience. For whatever reason, after that experience, I had almost sought out people that had some sort of experience like that. We called it the NDE Club. It was really interesting because I feel like I got really into walk-ins. And I don't know if that was something that I experienced. I don't believe that I did, but it piqued my interest there.
In a world moving faster than our minds were designed to handle, mental health is becoming one of the defining challenges of our time. Welcome to Mental Health in a Modern World with holistic health practitioner Greg Schmaus. After overcoming severe anxiety and OCD in his own life, Greg dedicated the past decade to helping others heal through a fully integrated approach to mental health, combining lifestyle coaching, psycho-emotional healing, mindfulness, and archetypal work. Over the years, he's facilitated thousands of sessions, guiding people back to peace, clarity, and a deeper connection with themselves. Each week, Greg shares powerful solo insights, conversations with leading voices in holistic healing, and immersive live coaching sessions that take you inside the healing process itself. New episodes every Friday. Follow the show and start reclaiming sovereignty over your mind in a modern world. Here's Greg.
Dawn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I would love to start with just a little background about your work, maybe how you got into it. I'm always curious about people in the field of healing, of spirituality, of holistic health, and their personal journeys. There's always an interesting journey and background and backstory that brings people into this work. So I'd love to just start there.
Yeah, that's a great opener. And it's a bit of a long-winded one, but I'll do the best I can to keep it as concise as possible while still making sense. As a child, I always just gravitated, I'll say it that way. I always gravitated towards things that were of the metaphysical world, we'll say. It just made sense to me. So I just kind of always thought everybody was like that. Everybody had, heightened intuition. And I do believe now that we all do, especially from birth into our younger years before we're desensitized by society and the earth plane. For a matter of speaking. That was kind of, with the early age stuff, but went to college and I actually studied, not a lot of people know this, but I actually got a degree in sports medicine. And I was really intrigued by science and the body. And I still am in a lot of ways. That led me to, after college, I took some time, I traveled and did some things, but I didn't really want to go to grad school just yet. I didn't know if I wanted to. I'll put it that way. And so I ended up going to massage therapy school. And I figured I would work with athletes, post injury and things like that, because I had that background already with my education. And going into the world of massage therapy, and I never thought I would be a massage therapist. If you had asked me years before that, there was no way. And when I stepped into that space as a supportive healer, I loved it. I really did. I was so intrigued by the capability of the body in its way to heal with that type of modality. And it really meant a lot to me. And I took a lot of pride in my work. And I still to this day will say that. I really developed, though, as a energy healer. And that was one of my launching pads, if you will. So, it's very interesting how the body that got me there and my curiosity and passion for it in a lot of ways then brought me to the connection of more or less the ethereal worlds. And while I was doing that, getting trained in Reiki and things like that, Reiki, I respect it wholeheartedly. But for me, there was something else that I kept feeling like I wanted to be outside of anything compartmentalized, if you will. And I couldn't explain it, but I just went with it. And then I just kept going. And I will say this, when I was in high school, I actually had a really intense near-death experience. I don't talk about it a lot, and it's really interesting. And that could take us on another tangent, but I definitely feel like for whatever reason after that experience, I had almost sought out people that had some sort of experience like that. And We called it the NDE Club, and anybody that I knew, and we would discuss it. It was really interesting because I feel like I got really into walk-ins, soul walk-ins. And I don't know if that was something that I experienced. I don't believe that I did, but it piqued my interest there. So I almost need to, like, I'm being called to insert that here, and I feel that's important. It'll come up. But so back to technical and becoming a massage therapist and working as a healer, energy worker. And then, my intuition and my psychic abilities were really growing. And then I had another life experience that brought me to a point where I decided that I had what some would call a spiritual awakening, although I don't know if we ever really awaken, if it's just a cut and dry spiritual awakening. I feel like for some of us, it's an ever evolving thing. But I started to really get more in depth and pursue my spiritual interests, what it meant, things like that. And that really aligned beautifully with that psychic opening that I was also having. And I was channeling, and while I was doing healings, and one of my incredibly profound experiences that led me directly to this type of mediumship that I practice now is I started to work with people that were regular clients of mine for massage, and I would just let them know, hey, I'm opening up psychically, and if you're comfortable with it, I'll either bring you a channeled message or, I would do these exercises. I didn't have professional development. I was just going with whatever called to me. And this woman who was on the massage table, sure. And for the first time, I had a very clairvoyant visual of what I then found was her brother who had passed, and he had passed, years beyond. And I described the scene to her, and she just got really silent, and she was like, oh, okay. So that's my brother. He passed. And at the time, because I was undeveloped, I didn't know what to do with it. So I was as startled as she was, and I almost left it flat. Like, I finished her session and I did some energy healing, but I didn't stay connected to him, and I would have wanted to. And that actually brings me to another point. I also need to insert this. I have definitely had a good amount of paranormal experiences throughout my life. Outside of me, though, this was a very clairvoyant scenario that I was encountering. But before that, since child, I don't know, walking on the land, seeing things, seeing lights where they're not supposed to be, seeing entities where there aren't any, and things like that. So that just reminded me, because there's actually a kind of a funny story of how I got catapulted into developing into the work I do now, even just a handful of years back. But I had another paranormal experience, and had I realized what it was, I probably would have intentionally stayed connected or wanted to stay connected. At the time, I saw a little girl running around, and I thought she was actually somebody on property where I lived, and it turned out that it wasn't. So all these things just kind of wrap up into bringing me to, okay, it's not a need for a psych eval kind of scenario. It's more or less like I understood that there was a connection to consciousness, a connection to the other worlds that we exist in, other energy planes. And so here I am. So that brought me to developing, though, and understanding evidential mediumship development, because I chose to develop my mediumship as an evidential medium because there's that scientific part of me, or that curious part of me, that really always wants more evidence, or how do you know, the prove it kind of thing, where I can have acceptance. It's not necessarily about prove it in the way of skepticism. It's more of like, what else is out there? It's just curiosity. And so now when I do my readings and when I'm connecting with people who are spirit side, I'm working and developing on really, how do I know and how do you know that this is your person or your pet or what have you? So that's really why I chose, or it brought me to evidential mediumship, where mediumship of guides, angels, and things like that is beautiful, and it worked well and serves me well and others in channeling, but I still want to know. I still want to see them then. So, anyway, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And, it's funny because our journeys are actually quite parallel in terms of starting out with the physical body and then working our way more to the energetic body. And for me, it was probably similar to you, just following this breadcrumb trail of, okay, I'm starting as a personal trainer. Now I'm doing nutrition. Now I'm doing massage therapy. Now I'm doing energy work. And now things are opening up to other realms.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like almost like the onion. There's layers that you peel back, and you start with what's most familiar, comfortable, and then it starts to get more expansive. I'm curious, going back to childhood, and you mentioned, I think all children have access to this or are open from the start. I'm curious, what are the things that close children down? What are the things that close us down? Is it religion? Is it parental programming? Is it trauma that then we have to heal to open ourselves back up? And my sense is it's probably designed that way. But I'm curious your thoughts on why children are open, but then create that filter that closes them back down.
Absolutely. And I will say I've done a lot of reading up on this, right? And I feel and I believe that it's a little bit of both of what you said. I do think that a lot of us are innately sensitive when we're born. We're really spiritual beings having this earthly human experience. And that really brings it into a nutshell, because in our bodies, because I've had people ask me, my child is really intuitive. They're already seeing, can we develop them? And that's up for debate in the mediumship world. The reason why I say that is because I now see and understand that we need to have had certain earth experiences it's why we're here, right? And so having these experiences as in our very humanness, when sometimes I'm like, I'm like so superhuman right now. And I'm not like a superhuman. I'm so superhuman in these moments that I'm like, and you feel it. The ethereal world, spirit world, they all operate on a higher vibration, right? Frequency. And as a child, children just do. They just do naturally because the spirit's still getting used to the body, right? And you mentioned about being a trainer. Believe it or not, side note, I was too for a couple of years in there. It's like we all could go be bodybuilders, but are we going to? No, I don't want to do that, right? But some people are more gravitated towards that. For children, I feel like their knowingness, and I would say don't discount their knowingness, because I do believe that is certainly something that's true. I do feel that, and for some, there are a few that can go straight to working with the energies and mediumship and all of that. But I hope I'm answering your question well. But they need to have that. They need to. And so to bypass that and just stick with the mediumship might, unless they're, one of these certain anomalies, and there are some of them out there, but it bypasses that human experience. And then we can get into a lot of stickiness as well. Trauma is one thing. I feel like for some, trauma is something that almost opens a doorway to more if you seek it, right? As a source, it becomes the healing, becomes the journey, becomes the landing. But I feel like with children, they're so amazing. Children are amazing. We're all amazing as children, but society. So to really go back to your question, society, whether it be religion, but I'll use this umbrella of society, it constricts all of that. Don't do it this way, behave this way. And you shouldn't be listening to your intuition. You shouldn't be doing that. Don't do that. And I mean, I don't want to get, again, another cup of coffee, but it's to trust our intuition is one of the hardest and greatest things that we can do in being connected to source and spirit. And I think that's the thing that really desensitizes children, is teaching them that to go against the grain for that. And I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but it's a form of control. Do we need some of that control and order? We need some of it on the earth plane. I'll say we do. But when it's put in too harsh of a place or implemented too strongly, I work with so many people that are just they'll talk about it all the time. I was raised to not believe this or not think that. And if you go, I mean, if we could talk about religion, I mean, I'll be here all day in the way of, I do believe the spiritual principles of a lot of religions was well intended. People get in the way. We just get in the way of a lot of things, but it's people being people in their ego that is a shield and or for control.
Yeah. Beautiful. I work with a lot of children and young adults. My area of work has been very much a holistic approach to mental health and the show Mental Health in a Modern World. And I've had so many young people come to me with quote unquote diagnoses of mental illness, whether it's anxiety or schizophrenia or OCD or, all these diagnoses. And when I work with them, they're so intuitive, they're so tapped in, they have this energetic sensitivity. A lot of them have different voyances that are, you could say, untrained. And I'm curious if you've seen this over the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years of this wave of this young generation who are so tapped in, but they're being pathologized because they're expressing these symptoms that are being misinterpreted as, mental illness. I'm curious what you have found to be true there.
Yeah. Great question. Great topic. And it's almost like the burning of the witches all over again in a modern way. Do I feel like, and I was just having this conversation with somebody over the weekend, I do feel that some of these things, the diagnoses are true. So it's a very fine line, because we'll go back to witches and all of that, the healers, the women that, and some men, but that were really sought after for their seers, for that ability. And they maybe didn't have the technology that we have or what have you, but it's almost like, were they experiencing schizophrenia, which is a real thing. I mean, it's a real diagnosis. It's a real ailment of the brain. Or were they a true seer? And maybe it was coming erratically because their encounters were so intense that they didn't know what to do with it. So bringing us up to now and to your question, and then what was it in the 90s, I think in the early 2000s, we had the indigo children, and it was like these types of, starseed children. Now I think they're called, there's, these ones that come down with or into incarnate with different vibrational frequencies. And pathologizing some of it again is important because I've seen it and I've witnessed myself the discomfort of not understanding it. I think education from a spiritual perspective and the way that we can as light workers, what you do is amazing, and really having this ability to educate not just the children, but their parents and the people around them, so that maybe there's a balance. Maybe it's finding their way. If they're over medicated, then that's going to just suppress and subdue any ability and any zest for life, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. But it's almost like I do believe that they're here because they're offering we're in a shift of different vibrational frequency. It's going to take years, but it's happening. It's been happening. And the generation, especially in these past 2 generations, say, I know my sons are they're in their early 20s, right? So even witnessing their generation of coming up, and it's like all of a sudden a lot of them, they don't know, they're so technologically driven. The energy around them and abound through them is incredibly different. So is it the chicken or the egg?
Sure.
Does that cause the ailment, or does that prove their frequency innately? Right. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to do more of a study and a deep dive on that, but I do feel like over pathologizing things does make some people more money. I said what I said.
Yep. We can't deny the truth.
So, so there's that, so there's so many elements to it that I think it comes down to a real individual scenario.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that everything sets everything in motion anyway. I think that's part of why they're here.
Yeah. One of the words you used was frequency. And something I'd love to explore is over the last few years, my path more recently has been shamanism and really opening up to some of those realms. And as I've connected deeper with my own inner guidance system, what I have found to be true from my experience is that if we're connecting with spirit guides, ancestors, beings on the other side, so to speak, from what I've come to experience, we're really just moving into a vibrational state or a frequency that's in resonance with that dimension. And so a lot of times people think, oh, like the spirit world is out there, or in religion, like heaven is like up in the sky, or it's like some other place. And like what I have found to be true for myself is there's not another place that they go. It's just almost like it's like the radio has different stations that you tune to. And as you tune the frequency to a certain station, you pick up a different signal. And so all of that is actually happening right here. And so I would love for you to expand on that as someone that's been doing this work a lot longer than I have,
Yeah.
to build on that, because you use that word frequency, which really I felt was significant.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited. I love that you're doing that too. Shamanism is something that always fascinates me too, right? And this is consciousness. So I'm going to take us out of like just not just, but the mediumship mindset too of connecting soul to soul. Because when I did my quantum healing hypnosis training last year, I was challenged in some ways, and I'm going to circle back. You'll see where I'm going with this, but it was I was so used to connecting soul to soul, soul to soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that really just takes something I already kind of knew and believed in, so to speak, but it opened it up for me. And it was like, wait, we're all energy. I mean, it's all about consciousness. It doesn't matter. And that's why I chose to do the quantum one and not a past life regression one, or because there's this multitude of energetic frequencies, vibrations, whatever you choose to use the word, it's existence, it's life, it's consciousness. So yeah, that's why so much can actually be existing, living at the same time. And you said this too. And I actually remember not too long ago I was connecting to someone's loved one on the other side. And I now try to use very consciously the spirit world, because this person who was spirit said there is no other side. I got schooled by this person, spirit side. They were great, but they were like, there is no other side. Stop saying the other side. We're all right here. And I was like, oh, right. It's almost slang. But when we pass, to my experience, this is what I've been told by those spirit side. It's, again, if we're spiritual beings having a human experience, so then we just drop the body off when we're done with it, or it can no longer serve us because it's incapable of doing that for whatever reason. And then we're still here. We're still operating that frequency of I want to say our spirit, right, is still very much in existence. It's like when we get out of a car and we park it where it's over there, or maybe you trade it in and you get a new one. You're still the same person going into that new car.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the same thing, it's almost like how I relate with the body. It's like, it's just something you're going to put over there and then maybe get a new one or maybe not. And that brings us to reincarnation. But the frequency is really tuning into, yes, different radio stations, definitely. And when you think about it, earth, rocks, something that might not be seen as having any sort of energy because it's in complete stillness, because it's the frequency of that. That's why people that work heavily with crystals and things like that, they understand the frequency of certain minerals, crystals, energies, rocks, pieces of the earth. Again, so fascinating, but there's still a consciousness there. It's just on what we can, as science, like science shows us that if it operates at a low frequency, what does that do? It creates mass and matter. That's what happens. So that's where we slow down to come in to be incarnated, to slow down in our bodies, right? And then we can go, we're operating that really fast again. So when you do some shamanistic work, or when I'm connecting as a medium, it's bringing that, attuning myself to that frequency that spirits already, that's where they are.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the personal Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
That's a new fun term for it.
Yeah. Two things that were coming up for me is, number one, I was thinking back to how both of our journeys was started with the physical body. And what was coming up for me is that I find the healthier the body is, the higher frequency you can hold within it. And so when the body gets less and less healthy, our vibration drops along with it. And so I'm wondering if some of like energy healers and a lot of people that are like in our line of work, if one of the intentions of starting with the physical body is, one, to ground, but then also to realize that the body is also the antenna, and that the healthier the body, the greater access we have. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love that. So and I'm going to go back to science a little bit right here, because we're also a universe. So when you think about it, that the healthier the body, because the less composition of the cells, anything that's being held onto, it's nothing sticking. The food you take in, maybe the environment you choose to surround yourself in, so let's go to exercise, right? We can both understand that too, having worked in that world for a minute. It's the exercise. And this, for me, I chose to do this when I was first opening as well, a lot of exercise to understand that it would help my vibration physically. So it's really just going back to vibration. Some people need the ability to be so light that the vibration can charge quickly. But there are some people that don't need that, because the essence of the vibration really comes from within.
Yeah.
So while it helps us feel better and we can sustain, it can give more endurance, perhaps. I know that I will intentionally, and I did this when I was working as a massage therapist as well, but now it's really important, even more so, how and when I choose to eat around my sessions is really important, because food grounds me, because it gives the things in my body something to do. And because energy work also, believe it or not, it like creates a caloric recharge. And so it's like, oh, you start to feel like I'm being depleted, but I didn't even move. I was sitting here the whole time, or maybe just standing still if it's an event. And I would eat after to bring me back into my body. That's all. So I will not eat a big meal before I do readings or an event, especially because of all that energy. But I'll be sure to have something after, to almost reminding me. That's what it is. It's like reminding me that, oh, this body I need, but I would love to hear from you, because I understand even in shamanism, I mean, there's something about the fasting journey, going back to when you're on the precipice. And we're going to talk a little bit about maybe the precipice of near death or death, right? Right before it, not at the point where the body starts to literally completely decide to stop working. But if you're having literally near death, maybe it's from starvation, you start to see and you start to get so close to the spirit world. That's why if you work with people, or if you've ever been around somebody who's maybe on hospice or maybe ill, and and they're like, oh, Aunt Jenny's here and I'm seeing this person. And people ask me, are they really being visited? And I say, well, the people they're coming close to the people that are going to be there to receive them. Because they don't talk about the people that are in the room physically. People that are near death, they're going to talk about the people that are spirit side. And that's because now what's happening is, and this is also why I can do mediumship for people that are in comas and things, it's because they're so already ascending, and they're matching, their spirit is matching the spirit world, but the body is still at a body vibration, right? I hope that helps. Probably opens up more questions.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, I actually have an Aunt Jenny. Um,
I'm sure. Of course.
oh,
She's probably hanging out right here.
yeah. Um,
Her energy's with us, even if she's on on the earth side. Yeah.
no, she's on the other side, or
Okay.
other side.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
Spirit world.
yeah, you were mentioning shamanism. It is a classic initiatory process to whether it's a vision quest, sweat lodge. For me, recently, it's been sweat lodge and darkness,
Mm.
where you do, withhold input into the system. And whether it's through sensory deprivation or fasting, I find it increases the sensitivity to the subtle energy and because what we're talking about is more like subtle realms that in this density can be harder to pick up on. But when you were sharing earlier and you were talking about like the rock and the stone, and what was rising up in me is we've all been told, I think it's mostly through Abrahamic religion, which is the separation of spirit and matter, which is spirit is in this world and matter is in this world.
Mm.
And what I love about shamanism is you're taught that spirit is infused into matter
Yes.
and that they're not separate worlds or dimensions, that they actually coexist. I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I love that. Well, it's like the show's over. You just said it all. I love it. Because for me, I'm like, yes, yes, that's exactly it. What a beautiful way to put it is that the worlds are infused, right? And I think I was kind of almost saying it before, it's that we're coexisting. We're all coexisting because there's it is infused. But if we go back to what we understand as energy, right? Because frequency is energy. It's all literally currency, energy. And so it's how it's being transmitted or lack thereof. Yes. And this is something that I'm more opening up to now is understanding, though, that we are not the only matter in existence. The earth as we know it, right? The world, because going into galactic terminology and going even further, I mean, that's all energy happening out there, right? So is it infusing other planets or things that are there? Absolutely. I mean, the sun is literally a ball of fire, right? But think about how much energy is and power is behind that, and the moon. These are the things that we can see from the earth plane, that we can see as humans, what we understand. And so none of that needs to be told what to do and how to do it. It's just like nature, right? It just does. It just knows without human interference. We're busy bees over here doing all of this, let's cut down the trees. Let's do this. Let's do that. And so then we become so directionary in what we're doing in the task that we forget that a lot of this sustains our life as humans on this earth. And our spirit is certainly infused, but so is the spirit of the trees, the earth, the planets, all of that around us. And that's part of what for me has been that much more expanded, because in this past year, understanding more, going now to quantum and understanding that, because if we define spirit as something that infuses, or if, I say the spirit world, but that'll probably change my term for that too, because I feel like I'm putting limitations on it by doing that, you see. And so when I take out the limitation of it being anything, it's really just what we can comprehend, right? It's just what we're trying to find the answers of things that we won't know until we're over there. But it's fun to explore and understand, because spiritually, it helps us understand things that can raise our vibration, maybe as individuals. And then we go to, oh, you like that, I like that, that makes sense to me and you as well. So now together as a collective, so maybe shamans as a collective, the idea. And I love how you were saying about the idea of taking the input away. And that's really a lot of what development and training is, even as a medium. It's getting very used to taking the input just moving that part of my brain that takes in over, and honoring, trusting, and surrendering to that part of my brain computing, but all my other senses that are subtly now exchanging information on that frequency so that I can bring those two worlds together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What rises up in me is how, I think there was research a while ago that said the average person modern day consumes more information in one day than our ancestors did in one lifetime.
Mm, mm,
If you think about the amount of, obviously light carries infinite information. So like with our screens, like the amount of information that's entering our psyche on a daily basis would be infinitely more than our ancestors that were just living in nature. And so I'm curious, as human beings that are looking to develop intuition and open up to spirit, because I've experienced this tremendously, like, how do people navigate a world of technology with all of that stimulation and input and all the craziness, with wanting to open up to the subtle realms and for all of what we're talking about to become a lived experience? It seems like it's probably harder than ever. But on the other hand, the veil might be thinner than ever.
mm.
So I'm just really curious, anywhere you want to take that.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I definitely, and again, I'm going to just go back to we're evolving, and we're in such an evolutionary time with the technology and the way that we're using computers and advancements and that type of, if I sit on a computer all day, I'm exhausted and I didn't even have to move my body. Right. And it's because of that connectivity where, again, generations that are born into this now, they already have the endurance for it. It doesn't phase them. They're not. And I feel like if you notice it, you're more sensitive. You'll just understand the pull, right? And so you're either input or output from technology in the way that we understand technology. So I do feel that that's definitely evolving us. And are we going to be guardians of the galaxy at some point? Maybe. It's like that kind of evolution where now we've got all of this happening and our brains they're gonna, and scientifically but also evolutionarily speaking, I do believe in evolution at some point. I almost don't see a way where there isn't, because every time we have something like this that develops, so now to your point, where the brain is consuming and we're consuming that much more as humans, there's going to be a shift in how that our eyes, all of our physical makeup, what we're used to and how it's acclimated to its environment,
Mhm.
right? Over time, it just does. It's just part of it. So I do feel that's one thing. And then going back to some quantum ideas is that, okay, but it's not going to stop there, because this is all going to be going on in another stratosphere anyway.
Mhm.
And right. And so that's part of it. I feel like the other part of it is that technology for us that are living in this phase of it right now, like anything, you can look at it like assets and liabilities about anything, the blessings and the curses, so to speak, where technology can really help us. Look at you and I right now. How cool is this? We met in person, but, then we've been able to do these connections on a screen. You're in a totally other place than I am right now. And we're still having this wonderful conversation about these types of things. And this is happening now. It's so much more common, and there's accessibility for people in connectivity.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's this thing about spirit comes through electronics. I mean, this is kind of silly, but remember the movie Poltergeist? It's like where it came through the TV, the scary, because it's energy. It's energy. So now we get to not be scary about it. We get to be like vibrating over the fact that this is all really happening. And
Yes.
I think technology is a beautiful gift in that way. I think that it also creates a whole nother world, right? Where people can go and they can go down. It's like if you're walking in a unfamiliar place and you go down a dark alley and you don't know what you're going to find, maybe it's not the best of things. You can do that online.
Yeah.
You can do that online. So I feel like it's, again, if you use it in the right way, it's going to be really helpful for people, incredibly helpful. And I'll share this because it's coming up for whatever reason. Even talking about technology with the headsets. I don't know if you've ever done anything with like VR. And there's something about people that are ill or maybe going through chemo or having an experience that they can't go anywhere or they can't settle. And they put on this VR and it takes you to, maybe it's the sands of the white beaches in Capri or something. It feels so incredibly real that here you are. Here you are. And you, for that time and space, you get to not be your body, not be in your body, but you're still. And so that experience. So technology is fascinating in that way, right? It's amazing that that can happen. We've been working towards this. I'm very intrigued by the past, though, and what it was like without all of this, There had to have been, I believe, though even to them, there was technological advancements. Even the wheel. I mean, it was, oh my gosh, we can like do this and go places and move things. And so to us, what seems like, wow, super powerful, there's always been something super powerful. If you look at history, it's just, we're not limited. What technology and advancements are really just breaking limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm so grateful that you shared that, you could say, integrated approach or perspective, because there's so much polarization. We're like, in the tech world, AI and everything is the most amazing thing. In the spiritual world, it's devastating. And now we have the middle way, as Buddha would say.
Yes.
I'd love to shift gears for a moment and explore, this is something I've been really curious about. When you're giving readings, and, I've gotten many readings from many different practitioners. You and I have started to work together. And a lot of people that I know have gone for readings, many psychics, shamans. And a lot of times they'll say, they read these things and these things happened. And they read some of these things and these things didn't happen. And a lot of times people will say like, oh, like they read all these things and it didn't happen. They're not good at what they do, or it wasn't real, or like all these kind of like stories. So I'd love to explore, like, when you're giving a reading, how much are you tapping into, we could say, like the quantum field of potential, which these are some potential paths based on whether it's, your soul's alignment, or maybe even choices that you make along the way, versus this kind of fixed outcome, kind of black or white. Because there has to be so much that goes into something that you see and whether it actually manifests in someone's life in the physical world. And so I'd love to kind of unpack that a little bit, because I feel like there's so many nuances that most people might not understand that goes into what someone is reading versus what actually happens or manifests like in their life. If you're open to exploring that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. And thank you actually for bringing that up, because it is something that unfortunately can dissuade people from going maybe back to somebody unless they felt super comfortable. And even though it was like, well, that didn't really happen the way they said it would. So there's a couple factors with that. And it's what I need to emphasize is that when I'm working, and probably, any medium, but I'll stick to myself. When I'm working psychically and mediumistically, first of all, they're two different things. So psychically is connecting to what's happening on the earth plane, to the person that's alive, sitting in front of me, alive on the earth plane in front of me, and connecting to, say, it's you and it's your energy. And we're discussing what's going on for you And then there's mediumship, which is connecting to the spirit world and then bringing that information in. So part of what I want to make sure to say is that for people, I would ask people to understand that it's our interpretation. I feel like what would rather than it's what they're getting, unless they're just not in the power, which being in the power means they're just at that vibrational frequency and we know we're connected. And I'll feel it if I'm not, but something comes out. I'll say 8 times, maybe 9 times out of 10, I'll feel when it happens. Sometimes I'm just in such go mode that it just flies in and then flies out. I say, it doesn't make any sense. Just we'll put it on the side. Spirit always brings it back around if it's something that they want to make sure that they get to you, that information. And even psychically, right? That information, if it's so profound and it's got to get to you, it will. But it's really about the opportunity to translate. So how are we as the medium or the psychic in that way interpreting that information in a way that would be offered to make sense to the person in front of me, which is the sitter. Okay. And so it doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong. It means that they could have misinterpreted it now in their delivery as they articulate what they're getting, or because everything's perception. So in the way that the sitter, the person in front of them, received the information, how they heard it and how they digested it. There's that part, because we're getting information. We're doing the see, hear, feel, know, getting, imprints all at the same time. So very quickly decoding that, making it, okay, this is what, and then bringing that information and or story to you. What I would say too is that plays a big part in the psychic sessions is free will. So that's also why one of my sessions is, I don't do predictions unless somebody's spirit side is giving information like this is what they're seeing for you and that's their information, and there's an intelligence there that's just kind of like they already know because there's no time, so they're just like boop, go here. But psychically, it's going to be a psychic soundboarding, because I'm going to help you work through that using psychic information and intuition, helping what I feel. And I pay really close attention to the vibrational frequency of a person when they're offering what it is. Now, I choose to walk through that with them spiritually and give them feedback because there's free will. And I'm not going to say, this is what you're going to do and this is what's going to happen. I can lay it out in the way of, well, this feels like it's really in alignment with where you are headed and where you want to be and where you're going. So if you stay the course and pay attention for the signs, because things that are in alignment or meant to be, as some people might say, they just go easy. Things just start to open up and the path unfolds really easily. You're not forcing anything. You have to work at it a little bit, put in some elbow grease to get where you want to be, but allowing it to unfold in front of you versus really forcing something. So I could say to somebody, I feel that this is something coming up for you, but if they're still in a place where they're just, my experience, people just can be so blocked. They want it done for them and they don't want to put the work in. They want the psychic to tell them, no, this is what's going to happen just because it just is. And that's not how it works, because then what your subconscious is saying, my free will is I choose to do nothing about it. And you're disempowering yourself. And you're putting it all on the psychic or the person to do it all for you just because they made a statement. And that could be with anything, right? So I really like to encourage and empower people when I work with them and just say, this is how it could look, or maybe this is something you want to unpack or look into and kind of move forward, help support. It could be, we could get blocks from anything, trauma, grief, anything.
Yeah.
Addressing it's going to help you find your path and reopen back up. But that brings us back to that place of let me go back into seeing that. So I think that's where, but it gets a bad rap because people are like, well, I just want the answer. And then it doesn't happen. And there's a multitude of reasons why. But I try to be very, as somebody who understands that, I try to be very clear when I work with somebody, though. I think a lot of it is the responsibility of the psychic or medium as well to educate the person that's going to come for the reading, or while they're there, or maybe beforehand. This is what to expect. If I could be the psychic that gets the lottery numbers and lays them out for everybody, so to speak, we'd all be set. Let's go. We'll go. We'll go on vacation all the time, everywhere, So there's a reason why we don't, because we have this ability, but it's giving the person the gift of also reminding them of their free will. That's the part. We're just kind of helping support the space. We're just maybe a co-pilot, maybe not. I like to say that spirit and source are really the co-pilot, but we're just kind of the person with the directions. Like, here, I see this, and here's the best way to get there, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I remember this was many months ago. I was driving in my car and I was using Waze just to get me somewhere. And I just have this sense of like, spirit works very similar to how Waze works, where like there's this destination, which we could say is like your destiny, your potential, and spirit's guiding you there, ideally like in the most efficient way possible. But spirit might say turn left, and you're like, no, screw that, I'm turning right. And you have the free will to turn right. Waze is not going to say like, oh, like Waze isn't going to control your car. Like, you're going to turn right, and then Waze is just going to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And there might be a different timeline because there's a different ETA now, because there's maybe a little detour. And I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like, spirit is always guiding you, but giving you free will and then recalibrating, like almost like in the quantum field after each choice. Would you say that that aligns with your experience giving readings?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, for sure. Because it's so it's such a great analogy. It's so true, right? Life is just the lily pads to getting to where we're going to go anyway. Or maybe you've heard we're all just walking each other home. We're still being, it's like you can get there any way you want. And some ways, though, like you said, you might take, oh, I'm going to just do this anyway because I think I know better. I'm going to get there faster. And this goes back to discounting maybe some intuition or something. And, I've taken that other route before, or I heard about it. Let me do this. But maybe that's not the route for you. And on that day, at that time. So now you're on that route and the road is closed. And now you're like, oh, I got to turn back around and go back. There's nothing wrong. It's nothing bad. It's just going to take you a little longer to get there. Maybe you have to try going an entirely another way. And maybe you were going to go to a place that you haven't been, and now it's closed. So you have to go home, and then you have to get in the car tomorrow and take that route and wait for that road to be open again so that you can fully complete the course and get to where you were going.
Yeah.
Talk about being infused, and you used that word earlier, and I really love that too, because that's the part I feel like that's very much infused, is that the navigation and the connectivity, the connection to source, yes, infused in us. And also allowing, some people say, well, I don't want to be the one to tell people that they're responsible. I don't do manifesting because I don't want to tell people that they're responsible. How can you tell somebody that they're responsible for something bad that happened? And it's not necessarily that they're responsible for the thing that was bad that happened, right? Because that's where we're not surrendering. That's where we're thinking that we're in charge. It's not really manifesting. That's, again, disempowering yourself to that idea, right? But to really step back and go, well, okay, I want to raise the energy so I feel more aligned. So maybe you're just having a day where you thought you were in a rush and the universe slowed you down and set you back for a reason. And there's something to be said for that's okay, maybe. I feel like that's a big part of the surrender to it. And yeah, I mean, I chuckle because it's like spirit's always in charge. Again, spirit's responsible for our creation, and spirit being the energy of it. And then spirit's still in charge in that way. So we have free will, for sure. I've used, I have an interesting relationship with my GPS because it's like, I've done that. And it's like, oh, or maybe I, need a gas. So I pull off and then there's no gas station. And so it's like all these quirky little things, but I do too relate it to connection in the spirit world and really being shown that. But that's the free will part. We need to have free will because free will is, and people don't understand this. So I do want to say this if I can. We need to have free will because if we didn't, it takes away our opportunity to have that real human experience, that cause and effect. And so it's part of it for all of us. Otherwise, why be here?
Yeah.
Feel it all. I tell people, feel it all, the good, the bad, the things that really ignite you, the things that make you feel, just feel it, experience it, because that's, again, this is the gift, not the ability to connect, the gift is being in the human body and being able to experience it all, knowing that it's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
People get stuck in that.
And I find free will is what gives meaning. Like if our, let's say our significant other didn't have the free will to hate us, then them loving us wouldn't mean anything. Or if they didn't have the free will to leave us, then them being with us wouldn't have any meaning. So it's almost like we need the free will in a world of polarity for anything to hold any value.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the dark and the light.
Yeah.
Just like the dark and the light, right? So because neither one of them can do diligence without the other. So it's so simple, but we can get caught up because we're taking in so much, we're experiencing so much, we're experiencing things we don't even know we're experiencing. Right. And so it's like all that's going on. So we can get caught up in all that, but just like bringing it back down to, oh, I've got this thing called free will and it's part of my magic superpower as a human. That's for all of us. That is our superpower. We just forget it's there.
Yeah. I'd love to jump over to mediumship for a moment.
Sure.
One of the things that I've been very curious about is, a lot of times whether you're giving a reading or we're connecting with ancestors and they share information, they share insight, they share guidance, I'm wondering how much we have to discern whether that ancestor or family member is in a healed state to offer that. I remember, I don't know if it was Paul Selig or one of like the well-known channels, like he said, just because they don't have a body, it doesn't mean they're wise. And I'm curious if as a medium, if you feel like there has to be any discernment, let's say when an ancestor is coming into a session, like where are they at in their healing journey and what they're offering as guidance? Like, does there have to be some discernment there? I'm just really curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I almost beg to differ a little bit on that statement. Yeah, because I believe in the intelligence of spirit. And I believe that the intelligence is not just operationally, but the intelligence in the way of the spirit knows best. And I feel that that type of comment is just because they're an ancestor doesn't mean they're wise. Could be, I think that's what you said or something like that, right? It's
just because they don't have a body doesn't mean they're wise.
Yeah. And so in my understanding of it is that you're now relating to the soul. And yeah, sure, the soul, because the soul is what is the personality part of who our existence, of who we are outside of the body. It's what makes, it's our composition that does differentiate us from others, right? Aside from, what our looks, our physical makeup is. But so the wisdom will come from the soul, but the spirit world is all-knowing and intelligent. So there's wisdom there, right? And so again, I feel like that's a little bit limited. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's the messenger, and I'm going to go back to the messenger there. Nothing against him if he was channeling, and it's almost like, I think it's in the context of how it's said, but I also want to say that it's, and this is why development with mediumship also, I will say this, is it's so incredibly important, because the delivery can mean so much. You can get something with somebody who's a connection mediumistically from someone who's very spiritually developed, and they understand, not understood necessarily by others, but they understand their own development. They understand their own connection. They understand spirituality as a whole, right? And so if the information comes in and it's not necessarily delivered with that knowingness that's going to help or empower. Now, the person receiving the information, right? That could be harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going back though to directly, like, at the same time, from what I understand, there are levels. I've had readings where the person, spirit side, comes in and says, in fact, I just had one, I think it was yesterday. The person, spirit side, was coming in offering, wow, you know what? I want you to know I've changed. Things are so different now. Now I've understood. Now I've gained wisdom. When I was like this, when I was on the earth plane, I was like this, short-sighted, narrow-minded. And now I'm here, and my healing is unfolding, and I'm now getting wisdom, maybe, but it's more of an opportunity to, the healing is in, a lot of times the healing's in the message. So for instance, this person was like, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear them almost grace me with a love and permission in a way that they didn't necessarily do when they were here on the earth plane, but they were also taking responsibility for that, this person's spirit side. It's very different. They were acknowledging the unfoldment of what their process is. Again, I the ultimate truth we'll know when we get there, because then that brings up the question of, well, are there different planes? Do they have to go through these types of things? I think it's in Christianity, or maybe specific to Catholicism, there's this place called purgatory, and they get there and they have to be in that, like, holding pen, so to speak, on a soul level for a while before they can actually go. And is that the place where they're faced with, I don't really know. I feel like there's a lot of healing that happens once they can see everything, once they can allow that space. And again, I feel like the healing is the contract of anything that's not harmful or disparaging, and whatever that means for both parties involved. Maybe it's the person's spirit side that needs to hear from the person here still on earth, hey, I realize I did you wrong. I'm so sorry. You're not here for me to say it, but I'm going to say it now. Or maybe their heart is mending in a new way. Spirit knows that. Spirit knows that already. Again, because I'm going to go up here, but that when we do up here, it just means that's like the frequency where I see them, but they're everywhere. I think, and going back to like the play on words, and you were saying when we first opened, it's like you're thinking everybody says heaven, things are up here. It's really not. It's just, that's the frequency. It's higher.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's relevant. Yeah.
You use the word contract, and that's a big word in the realm of spirituality and the realm of, even in some of my work in family constellations. And I'm curious your perspective on us coming here as souls incarnating with certain contracts, maybe relationship contracts, work contracts, things we're here to learn, things we're here to fulfill. And then also, like, how much of those contracts are written in stone? How much of those contracts are negotiable? I'm just curious, like, in your experience offering readings and tuning into these things, what's your experience been with our contracts here throughout an incarnation?
Yeah. I love all of it. I say that every time, but I do believe in soul contracts, and I love exploring the idea of them. And my experience with it is it makes sense in a lot of ways. I feel like going back to the idea of, I'm going to describe the visual, but if you ever see light bounce off of something, right? To get, it's either going to whoo or it bounces off, bounces off, bounces off. And so I look at soul contracts like that. Is everyone, maybe the one that you meet somebody and it's just, oh, I feel like I've known them maybe in a past, maybe there was another life, or maybe there is another life that it's just so familiar. You're so familiar to me. Maybe there's a contract going on in another realm with that person, right? And so the analogy of the bounce off, it's almost like, because to get there, maybe the contract is, I'm going to help you get there. And it's not the straight path like we were talking about. So maybe some people go, well, why did it have to end? Maybe it's a relationship. Why did it close? Well, maybe it fulfilled its part, meaning it's now going to send you on a different trajectory. And that next spot, that other lily pad, is the one that you're going to then be, oh, wow, there's so much more. There's more here. And so that is how the contracts are perceived. I do believe that they're agreed upon, the bigger ones, like the ones that are really going to help parents and children, maybe, or literally family. And then the people that we choose to bring in and out of our lives, even the ones that are, I'm going to say, a choice in a relationship that you didn't maybe understand was intentional. You end up in it. Maybe the person is like, ooh, this does not feel good. Now I'm recognizing that this is turning, because maybe one of the partners is not in such a good headspace towards, maybe they're mistreating, maybe there's mistreatment or something there. Then it's that person. Now we go back to free will, but that person, this doesn't feel right. I don't have to stay. And if I choose to go, now I'm setting that light beam back off, right? And this person maybe their contract was to bring that into their life, to set their soul on this other, almost I can now find freedom where I otherwise might not have. For people, maybe they stay. And I'm not, please, if anybody's listening, I'm not saying that staying or relationship specific. This is purely an example. But if you end up and you stay and you get stuck there, and people, I'm stuck, there's another way. But now that contract is, now you're saying there's no negotiation, and you're forgetting, you're disempowering your free will yet again, right? And so I feel like and I will say this with mediumship specifically, I've heard people from spirit side say, I'm sorry, if they're coming in with taking accountability, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, in hindsight, maybe helped in this way. Would it have changed the trajectory for the person on the earth plane? Maybe sooner. And again, going back to like that example, but even, and this is where I think mediumship can be a really big tool to use, because that person's spirit side now is saying it to them now. And there's that healing. Oh, now they can go on their trajectory. So we were saying, like, you're taking the long route. It's all relative. It's still the same idea. Those contracts, I believe that they're set in stone for certain purposes. But I do believe underneath all of that, there's still the free will that's going to be the thing that really seals the deal.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's like your signature in wet ink on the bottom of the contract.
Yeah.
It's
and
your
so
free
would
will.
you say our destiny is unavoidable on some level, but how we get there is a choice?
Destiny is it's an interesting topic. The fated. I don't know that, yes and no. And I feel like what it is just going back to your ways example. Say you're trying to go to a specific store, right? Or location. I don't know why it has to be a store. Maybe we need to go shopping, Greg. But say there's a specific location And you're looking to get there, but you go, okay, that's my perceived destination. And now when you hit that dead end road, so you back out and you go and you're like, okay, but I can turn around and just go around the block. And then you get to the next block, and all of a sudden, that location that you were looking to go to, there's another one right there.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Look at that. Amazing. So, you know what? This is perfect. I'm going to hang here. This is a location that's either the same or carbon copy. And here you are, right? So that to me is the destiny and the fate. Again, it goes back to having free will and yet still being able to get to where it is we need to go, which is still going to be part of source and end up spirit side, right? It's hard. It's hard to practice in our daily lives, but sometimes it's just why be so serious?
Mm.
You know, because at the end of the day, we're all just looking to go to that beautiful place and that location and have the best time, maybe with the less amount of traffic, but meeting the most amount of people and in the highest way possible, in the best way, in the highest good possible. So to me, that's the destiny is there. It's not in the thing. It's not in the grandiosity. It's not in the how much can I get there? That's where I think I'm supposed to be. There's no thinking, spirit. There's no the wisdom of the ages. Going back to that thing. Yeah, because they did it. Maybe we can ask those that have gone before us to come in and help support our journey, infusing it with the knowing or the opportunity to be able to discern those places that feel good. Don't you want to just go there feeling good, but also understanding that if I have a little of this, it doesn't feel right. It's just a check engine light. It's just the guide to tell me, oh, maybe turn around or maybe go a different way or find something that makes you feel good again. So yeah, I feel like that's how I see it. And maybe people are just going to call me a positivity chaser. I don't know, but I talk to the dead for a living. So you've got to understand that. But I communicate with spirit, better off said. And I don't see anything, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that. I think we all should just feel a little bit more empowered on a daily.
Beautiful.
And I've had my dark days, right? So that doesn't mean that it's not having been without, like you said before, the dark and the light. They need to. So
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I could talk to you for hours about these things, but I would love to just open up the space for you to share anything that you'd like to share about your work, anything that our listeners haven't heard about. So I just love to open up the floor for you to share anything else you'd like to offer in terms of your work.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I do a few different things that I'm passionate about, all of them. I do private one-on-one sessions. They're virtual, which is fine. Spirit works the same. It doesn't change the format of the reading or how your loved ones are going to connect or how I connect with you. So private sessions, I do quantum hypnosis sessions, which are really interesting. And that's just to explore and visit all of your consciousness. And it really is a beautiful way to have some understanding of patterns, of blockages, of yourself, really, even better yet. And I do offer some mentoring as well. And I have something called Sacred Soul Society, which is a gathering weekly that we get together and on Zoom. And I bring whoever is a part of that community at the time, I bring through practices of understanding your intuition, of understanding how to connect. We do a lot of psychic work in there, exploring, but you don't have to be a psychic or want to be a psychic. Maybe you just want to understand spirituality better. You maybe want to have more, again, connection to your intuition and be supported in your journey with like-minded people. I'm trying to think of what else. And then I do events, every now and then you can check my events page on my website, my public events or demonstrations of mediumship. And that's what I do. And oftentimes for larger crowds, I do also do workshops. I haven't run any in a while, but there will be, those are my in-person workshops will be popping up again soon. So you can always check my website, which is dawnpaula.com. And that will give you all of my information right on there. Anything that's being offered at the current time, can contact me directly through there as well. And I'm on Instagram at _Dawn Paula _ as well. So those are
Beautiful.
probably the best places to find me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I'm just curious if you or anything coming through to you, any parting messages for our listeners?
Ooh. Yeah, there's something that's coming in about, I just feel like there's something about not giving up. Don't give up. Don't give up, and give yourself an opportunity to stand in the sunlight for a little while and enjoy it. And I'm going to go back to what was just said, but why so serious?
Mm.
Yeah. Have some fun with it. Spirit wants us to play.
Dawn, thank you so much for your
You're
wisdom,
welcome.
your presence, your guidance also in my life, and for coming on the show today.
For sure. Thank you. And I forgot to mention, I do mentoring, but that's all on my website. So you know that already. But so good to see you. Thank you so much for asking me to be a participant on your beautiful podcast and all that you have to offer. And I definitely look forward to connecting with you more as well. Thanks,
Thank you so
Greg.
much.
Okay. Talk soon.